Kia ora. Kia ora I te whānau. Kia ora everyone, thanks for coming. It's a bit funny, holding this mic. Yeah, thanks for coming to our Councillor Connect Forum tonight. I'm going to be leading our forum, myself alongside Councillor Kylie Leonard. But before we kick off, we'll do a quick karakia, and then I'll give you guys a bit of an overview of how we think tonight's going to run. And just before we say karakia, there is a live stream happening over in that corner. And I'm speaking into this mic because if we don't, nobody on the live stream can hear us. It's being recorded and it's going to be up on the council website afterwards, if that's all right with everybody here. It will also help our staff to capture any actions or key discussions that might need to be uploaded to the website. So, o ke kaso for the karakia. Tuia ki te Māori o te whenua, tuia ki te mana o te tangata, tuia ki te pono, te aroha, kia peke, kia eke, ki te taumata, huie taike. Ka pai. So we kicked off, we have a bit of an agenda here, but to be honest, I think we're just going to be super free-flowing tonight. We don't have to follow an agenda. The purpose of these Councillor Connect forums is for you guys, for the community, and so that we can come as councillors and listen and just openly kōrero and you know, hear and speak about any kaupapa, any topic that you want to speak about. Before we get into the informal agenda, I have to say a couple of health and safety points, exit points. If the alarms go off, you can all see the door. Don't panic. Go outside and keep calm and go in the car park, not on the field, eh? Ka pai. Wharepaku location, toilet location is in the hall. The signs that say toilets, that's where the toilet is. Yep, recording's in progress. Just let us know if you don't want to be on camera. And whenever you kōrero, if you can grab the mic and just speak into the mic, that'll be helpful. Yeah, we've got our council staff with another mic who will be floating and passing the mic around. So yeah, that is pretty much the key points ticked off. I'm going to hand the mic around to our councillors who are here with us tonight. Everyone can just give a bit of an intro to themselves, who you are, which wards you represent, and anything else you want to say tonight. So, yeah. Oh, should I go? Tēnā koutou. I'm Wahine, ko Wahine Merch, tōku ingoa. My name's Wahine Merch, he uri tēnei no Ngāti Tūwharetoa. No kōnei hoki ahau. I'm actually from Waitahanui. I'm one of the Te Papamārearea councillors on the Taupō District Council. So I was elected on the council to represent our Te Papamārearea Māori ward constituents. Yeah, really looking forward to having open kōrero with everybody tonight.
Kia ora koutou, ko Kylie Leonard ahau. I hail originally from the mighty Reporoa and now here in Taupo, been here for a number of years. Dairy farm out to the west and love it out there. I'm elected to the East Rural ward as the ward councillor. Come down here, Wahine and I sit together and have a good deal of fun as work colleagues and as well as friends. So it's nice to be down here to support her tonight, and yeah, nice to hear from the community and get to know people further afield to where I normally roam.
Thanks, Kylie.
Kia ora koutou, ko ngā hui a fōmana hau, he uri tēnei no Ngāti Tūwharetoa, but I hail from the other side of the lake, although whakapapa from to this side too. Yep, Papamārearea Māori ward councillor as well. That's about it. Okay, who we?
Kia ora ngā hui, give it to Duncan.
Hello, Councillor Duncan Campbell. I hail from Auckland. I escaped down here about 10 years ago, and civil engineer in my regular job. And I if you want to chip in.
Kia ora koutou, ko Kevin Taylor, tōku ingoa, he kai kauni hera hāpai ahau mō te rohe o Taupo. I'm Kevin Taylor. I'm a Taupo Ward Councillor and Deputy Mayor. And pleased to be here and good to see you all. Again, Dave. Second time today. Frequent flyer.
That's all the councillors here tonight. And yeah, we've got our Deputy Mayor joining us here tonight, so thanks everybody for coming to support. I might just do a quick round for our council staff, just so you fellas, whakamohi o mai, let everybody know your job in council. Thanks.
Kia ora koutou, my name is Rose and I am a Community Engagement Advisor.
Thanks,
So I will pass it on to the next person, which is Carrie here.
Go on,
It's
Kerry.
uncomfortable. I'm normally on the other side of the camera. I do video stuff for the council, and now I'm doing as I tell others not to do, which is wave the microphone around.
Kia ora koutou, called Jennifer Charas toku ingoa, and I'm the Senior Engagement Advisor here at Taupō District Council. We're just supporting today, so teas and coffees.
Kia ora koutou. I am learning to do Kerry's job over here with the camera. Ko Tani Russell Toko Ingoa. I am the community lead for council. So the engagement team is, I have the pleasure of having them in one of my teams. And the Councillor Connect, I support our elected members through this process. So, ka pai.
And that's all of our kaimahi, that's all our stuff tonight. Okay, I suppose we can get into the kōrero now. So I think, like I said before, it's not going to be too structured and formal. I don't want anybody to feel, because there's a camera up and there's a microphone here, I don't want to feel like you have to sit and be quiet. But I think we'll just kick off and give a bit of an update, I suppose, on our most recent hui that we had yesterday in council chambers. We started, sorry, before I carry on, I also don't want to be the one speaking all the time, so I'm gonna pass the mic around to all of the councillors and they can have a kōrero as well. If you have any pātai throughout the kōrero, just say you got a pātai, and we can stop and answer the pātai throughout the kōrero. So we had a hui yesterday. I'll start on the morning session. We had a extraordinary council meeting on the Head Start.
Give some background on that.
Yep, on the Head Start proposal. So the government announced a new thing called Simplifying Local Government, and they pretty much gave all councils across Aotearoa 3 months to decide whether or not they want to enter into this Head Start process, which was essentially an opportunity all the time for all territorial authorities, which are your district councils, to participate in the Head Start process. And the Head Start process is to develop a proposal, submit it to central government to let them know, pretty much let them know who or which other councils you are going to amalgamate with under the Simplifying Local Government policy. So we have a tab on the council website that outlines all of the details around the Simplifying Local Government kaupapa, and we actually just had a survey that closed up, I think last week it was. So if you participated in that survey, well done. We received all of the results, and we received the raw surveys a couple of days ago from our comms and engagement team. So we had that, we had that we had that hui yesterday, and we were pretty much presented with 4 different options, and we had to give council staff direction or approval to go and do a deep dive analysis into those 4 different options. And do you want to add anything, Kylie?
You're going to kick over.
Yeah, so the 4 options that were thrown up on the screen were all approved. I think one of them was to investigate or deep dive the backstop process, which is like the counter to the Head Start Head Start process. So any councils who don't participate in the Head Start and provide a proposal will automatically be placed onto the backstop thing. And we don't really know all of the details around the backstop thing at the moment because the government are kind of drip feeding us information. But what we know is that anybody who doesn't participate and put a proposal to government by the 9th of August, we will automatically be siphoned over to that backstop, and we don't know what the future of that backstop looks like.
So instead of us doing it, they'll do it to us.
Yeah.
There's no kind of opt-out option. We do it to ourselves, or they do it to us. Do you want to go into? Okay. The other part of this process is being compelled. So that means if you don't want to have a conversation with another council, they can just compel you and put you into their program of what they want to do. So we can go and have a conversation, and our mayor and deputy have been doing that with other mayors and try to come to some level of agreement, that or they can just pop you into what their plan is. So we've been mentioned by others, Waikato Catchments, Provincial Unitary Authority, Waikato Waters and Taupo Central Authority, Waikato River Catchment Authority and the Waikato Unitary Authority. So those are the people that have mentioned us, and we are found in their maps on websites, and that's without us saying, yes, we'd like to come with you, or any of those things. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think, it kind of proves that whilst the Head Start might be an opportunity for us in Taupō District Council to put our proposals forward to government, it's also an opportunity for all of the other councils across the country to do the exact same. And we can be included in other proposals. We can also include other councils in our proposal as well. But what we have done is we've let the councils who we've named and the options for deep dive yesterday, we've given them a bit of a heads up just to let them know, hey, we've named you guys in our options to do a deep dive analysis to determine whether or not we would be a good fit to amalgamate with. And we had that discussion yesterday. There's a pack here. I'll just hand it around. Everyone can have a look at the different options that we approved to deep dive into. And I'm actually going to pass the mic over to Duncan. He'll have a bit of a kōrero about what he thinks about it. Here you go.
Oh yeah, this has been, like Wahine saying, it's been thrust upon us in a short time frame. And if we're talking about buddying up with other places, as far as Hamilton, say, I think there are some advantages in being part of a bigger place like that. There are some potential disadvantages too. A lot of it whatever happens, I think it will come down to the devil in the detail of local boards, setting up local boards, say a local Taupo local board or Turangi local board, and it actually having financial ring-fenced responsibilities and decision-making power. I mean, it could function, could potentially, if it was really done well, if you're really optimistic about it, it could function better than it does now. At the other end of the scale, I think that this backstop, they call it, option, interestingly, I've been looking a little bit into that, and potentially Rotorua might be heading down that path, because although it sounds doom and gloom that if you don't partake in this and you'll be stuck on your own and thrown in somewhere, it's actually not quite as simple as that. And there is a thing called a Local Government Act, which does actually, unless they change the law, the government, it's quite possible they change legislation and change the law, there is some protection to us just being thrown in somewhere that we haven't talked to you all about or haven't consulted about. So I think it's actually a realistic option, to be honest. Anyway. Kevin? Oh,
Sorry, darling, just so that they can hear if they're at home.
Is there not an option that certain things are being handled by a region, a larger region, and some will keep being handled by cities as they are?
If I understand your question.
Things like water, you know, yes, it will be good for us to come together with everybody who's anything to do with the Taupo Lake or, you know, a certain area.
Well, if you're talking about water...
Power is a similar one, you know, should be handled maybe just by each of the islands and you know, does it have to stay the way it is or is there only another option that we have coming back in bigger?
Well, the thrust of it is, I believe the main target of this whole process has actually been to demolish the regional councils. I mean, they don't run the infrastructure, but if we're talking about water quality and stuff, so I'm coming to believe that that's been the main target of this whole thing. It's not necessarily little places like us.
Yeah.
But the thrust of the government proposals is to form unitary councils, like up in Auckland, where they used to have an Auckland Regional Council. So now they do the whole shebang. That's the thrust of it. I mean, it's a nice idea. I mean, if you the extreme of that would be going back to little boroughs everywhere and having regional councils in charge of infrastructure and this and that. But that's certainly not the model they're heading towards.
Kia ora, I'm Nanny Phyllis Blake from Waitahanui, the East Mokopunas. I'm happy to be here this evening to listen to this kōrero. Now, my question is, when you amalgamate with whomever, does it affect our rates? Big time or what?
Oh yeah, that's the number one question. That's absolutely that's the number one question.
So do we get the opportunity to question it, to come in and meet and greet and you know, have a kōrero with you all in regard to that? Because hey, we're all ratepayers, and we should have the option as the public coming in to question, well, why is the rate this high or whatever? That's my question. Kia ora.
No, that is the number one question, and arguably none of us, including us councillors, have got adequate information to give you the answer to that yet, and that's what we're trying to get some sort of answer. But it's very spurious forecasting. I mean, for example, if we let's pretend Rotorua is heavily in debt and all their pipes are falling to bits. Yeah. That might not be such a good idea to partner with them because...
And I just want to ask one more question. In regard to that, you amalgamating, what name are you going under? Will you still be Taupo County Council or what?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. We'll have to have a bit of whip around to decide what should we call this new thing. It's a good question.
He pātai pai tēnā nen, e mihi ana I tō pātai. Yeah, in regards to the name or the ingoa, that is probably something that would be on the table. I think what's key information is that if we do submit a Head Start proposal on the 9th of August, that's the due date, that doesn't have to be the final, full, detailed proposal. That can just have an outline of what we're thinking, who we're thinking we want to amalgamate with, and then from the 9th of August, that's when we really start working with everybody to flesh out the detail of that tono, of that proposal. In regards to the rates, it definitely would have an impact. Whether it's an increase or decrease, we don't know, but the purpose of us approving these deep dive options yesterday was so that our staff could go away and conduct that deep dive analysis. So at the moment, we've been given a high-level draft financial analysis, so I don't think it was final information. We got that detail the morning before our workshop, but I suppose the purpose of us approving those 4 options for staff to go away and do a deep dive analysis into is so that you know, we had a long list. The options were everywhere. We could have chosen anybody to go and amalgamate with, and that's too much time and resource and mahi for everybody to go and investigate every single other council across the country. So we said, we'll take that big list, chop it down to 4, and now between today or yesterday and the next council hui, which will be at the end of July, I think, what date is that, 31st? 28th. 21st, oh hell, 21st of July. That's when, at that hui is when we are going to make a decision on who we're going to put in our proposal and whether or not we're going to submit a proposal. But the time between now and then will be solely focused on that deep dive analysis work. So the councillors are relying on our staff to go out and do a deep dive analysis and bring us back the information, financial information, non-financial information that will help us make an informed decision when we're going to enter into a Māori Nawa marriage with another council. Yeah. Yeah.
Explain my laughter. Not laughing at Wahine at all. It's it's a bit of an impossible job for our staff right now. We've told them, can you go away, do some homework on these 4 for us to make a decision on the 21st, which it's the 1st today, 20 days away, if we don't count the weekends. I hope we give our staff some weekends to have some time off, but we're not going to have all the information before we make the decision. We're going pretty much on our gut and best information we have without really...
We're putting a plane together while it's flying.
Yeah, it's not the most ideal situation. It's not how I would do a business transaction for anything, but it is what we can do right now without just sitting on our hands and saying, nah, leave it to you. Because we've got some key dates where 21st we're having the decision conversation. The 9th is when we have to put our tono in, but we won't actually know how it's gone until September when Cabinet sit down and make their decisions. So between August and September, again, we're going to be in a bit of no man's land space, because it could be that they say no to every one of our proposals and we get pushed back into backstop anyway. Or they could say, yes, you're in something, but not the one that you put up as a proposal. And then all the work gets thrown up in the air again. So we're not really sure what's going to happen until that decision is made. And then we've got between September and March, which again, not very long, to do the detailed work on, can this actually happen? So, yeah, and in between that, of course, we've got an election. So Lord knows what happens then.
Sorry, Kevin, I just had something come up in my mind. And I think it's important to note as well, though, that all councils across Tarohe, across the country, some of them haven't even attempted consultation with their communities. So one thing that the Taupō Council did was we put a survey out and we got over 1,000 responses and over 4,000 comments. So we put a survey out where we're trying to do what we can to engage with members of the community. Like Kylie said, we're trying to put a plane together while it's flying. But just in regards to the rates and hearing from the community, Nan, that is pretty much one of the main priorities that we're hearing around the council table when we're having our kōrero and our workshops and updates, is that we need to be spending time listening to our hapori and our communities, and the government are not really allowing that to happen. But we have we've done a survey. Some councils haven't. Some councils have already decided who they're going to buddy up with and put a proposal forward. Some councils have put a predetermined position out and then done a little bit of research and actually retracted that that decision. So I think one thing that I'm happy about is that we're not rushing into it. It's really important to do an analysis and for us to have all of the information that we can possibly get our hands on before even attempting to make a decision on a kaupapa as huge as this. Kevin, wanna have a kōrero? Sorry, took the...
I'll just pick up on comment Wahine made then. We're actually here to listen, so I'm quite keen to hear what you folk want to know or any questions you've got or concerns you've got. We're here to provide whatever answers we have got. I'm not saying we've got all the answers, but we'll do our best. So I'm keen to hear from you rather than me carry on talking. Stunned silence everywhere.
Kia ora. I do have a quick pātai just off the back of what Ngā Huia was sharing. What it sounds like is that it's almost a waste of time, but we're putting all these resources into trying to find an answer, but could still be a waste of time. Has the council considered how they're going to go up against Parliament in regards to their directive, and what does that look like?
So, yeah, we've had that question a number of times, and I've answered it in this way. First of all, based on the feedback we've had, at the bottom of whatever proposal we put in, there will be an addendum to say that the timing available for this is inadequate, and that the pressure and the process is fundamentally flawed. So that will be in our proposal. But if that's all you put in, then basically you're not going to achieve anything, or we won't achieve anything on your behalf. So yes, we will be pushing back. The other comment I've made a number of times, and for you folk here and all those who subsequently watch this is an election year, and you are all voters. And you're all quite capable of sending emails or writing letters to your Member of Parliament or to selected ministers in Cabinet. And I encourage you to do exactly that. And I know one person sitting on the couch next to me has done that. Hey Dave, number of times. But there is that option. And look, a number of people said, oh, waste of time. Yeah, one person, maybe 10, maybe not. 10,000, 100,000 people, you know. Farmers rose up with groundswell and changed the direction of Three Waters under the previous government. I have some opinions on the success or otherwise of that. They changed direction of the government at the time. The result of that is now it's come back again with a different name and we're paying for it, but that's another story. But if everybody actually got up and pushed back individually, that's, you know, in an election year, that will get attention. So if you want to do that, my encouragement to you would be, go for your life. I'm keen to hear from anyone else. So another question? Yep. Dave? No? Kate?
I've got a... Duncan, I'll let Duncan go first.
Oh no, yeah. Well, on that point, that is a good question, and in fact, I mean, I have considered that. Look, look, I'll tell you this: if we, as a body, we're convinced that hey, we don't want to take part of this, and we don't want to be amalgamated to anybody, it's actually quite easy. We just don't waste our time taking part in this, but we, and this is what I was mentioning before that Rotorua might be doing, because I've been talking with other councillors over there is a measured approach in the law now where you can, through the Local Government Act, not in a rush like this, but do a measured approach and apply to become a unitary standalone authority by yourself. And that might take a year or two to get through. It's actually a legitimate process, which some other places, by the way, we're caught on the hop. because we haven't been seriously talking about amalgamating anyone, but places, a few councils down the Wairarapa and South Otago way, they've actually been considering it for years, and so they're somewhat prepared already. So this sort of, in a way, it's a bit of a rush for them too, but they're sort of, it more naturally fits into where they were really seriously contemplating heading. But it's actually quite easy to, if we decided not to partake in it and take our own path, it is actually a valid way to do it. I'm not convinced it's the best option to just stay alone, but it is actually an option.
I think what I got from that question was, if we submit a proposal and it's not accepted, or if we are told or directed by central government that you have been named in this proposal, even though it's against our wishes or we don't want to do it, how are we going to respond as an organisation to the government? Was that where you were coming from? Yeah, that's what I thought.
So one of the things we're not clear on is after September, when they say these are the proposals that will go through Head Start, we don't actually know what happens after that. One of the things that has been raised is, so when we get to that point, if we're named in a proposal that we know our community doesn't like, will we have time, well, or even that they might like, will we have time to go out and consult at that point? And if there is a overwhelming, oh no, don't like it, then what? Can we pull out? We don't know. There's just too many unknowns. But doing all this work, while there are a lot of unknowns, it is nice that we're going to do the work to also build the narrative around these are the options we're willing to consider, I guess. Please don't do this because we've done the homework and this will be the impact on our district, and we don't want that. So we need to be able to do the homework to also negate what we don't want happening to us as well, and be prepared for that conversation. So even if we did decide to sit on our hands, we still need to know that to understand what we don't want.
I have another question. I'm not a great favourite of artificial intelligence, AI, but is this the sort of thing that you can throw out to AI and say, what would be the consequences if we're going together with that, or the various solutions or the various things that we have to choose about? What are the things that we have to consider? It might come up with some answers that make it simple, you know.
So your question is, have we put the questions through an AI application to... Yeah, well, could you? So that requires the base data to start with, which requires the deep dive that we've got staff doing at the moment. So you can analyse the financials, but what AI won't tell you is what the community perceptions are and what the wishes of the community are. You folk can do that. Yeah, it is a tool. I have used the tool a bit, and I know other people do. The problem with AI is the answer you get is very much dependent on the question you ask and how you phrase that question. So same question asked a slightly different way can get a completely different response. So you need to be careful with that. My preference is actually you voted us in to use our brains to represent you. If you want a computer to do that, change the rules. But
can I just add one thing?
It's a tool, yeah.
Kevin, is AI can only look backwards, it can't look forward. So it can only gather and consider what is currently there. It hasn't got the ability to view forward.
And on AI, because we've actually, like, everybody's using it as a tool as well, but the thing with that is you actually need a physical human to go away and verify the information that AI gives you. Because it is an artificial intelligence, it's researching the whole internet, it's researching legislation, not just from here, but from countries all across the world. So it doesn't really matter what you put into AI. Don't trust it. You always need a human to go and verify that information. And if you're going to have a human verifying what AI gives you, well, you may as well just have a human doing the job in the first place. That's what I reckon. But it's definitely a good thing to consider. So yeah, did you? Hey, Duncan.
Oh. No, yeah, it's great. I've been playing. I was just playing around with it just this afternoon, actually. And yes, no. It really is enormously powerful, especially if you're trying to get through enormous information out there. I might even put whatever I'm getting out today out of my Friday post, actually, if you follow it. No, it's actually, yes, it's all about the questions you ask, and verification is essential too, because yes, they do botch up some things, but so long as they name the sources and you can actually go and check them, it's,
Sorry, I was going to say, are there any other, so I know we've talked quite a bit about the Head Start amalgamation of councils. I'm sure there might be some other issues or anything else you want to put, but I'm conscious you two are leading the charge here tonight. So.
While we're here at the Waitahanui community hall, I might as well give an update about some works that have been approved to go ahead next week, which is the fence. There's going to be a fence built around the reserve, which has been, I suppose, long asked for by members of the community. We have seen a lot of damage done to the reserve in the past. Been told that it's been budgeted for in the past. So next week that will actually kick off. Contractors will be out to start that mahi around the reserve. So I know a few of our whānau, our hapori, our community members, our kids who play on the playground and on the field can now do it safely. So I'm rapt to be able to report that. And sorry that kind of cut off our kōrero around the Head Start. But if there, we can always come back to talking about Head Start as well throughout the night. But yeah, like Kevin said, really just want to get into some more kōrero around anything, I suppose.
I do have a question, but it's not related to the who.
That's all right.
And so,
Yeah.
So if you're the chairperson, I actually wrote you out a copy. If you're the chairperson, I wrote you out a copy. Might be tricky to follow. I understand it, I'm just not sure other people do.
No, that's all right. Thank you.
Okay. Kia ora, my name is Kate. So, given the structural and financial pressures caused by recent extreme weather events across New Zealand, legacy local policies can rapidly transform from protection mechanisms into serious liabilities. So my first question is, what frameworks are currently in place at TDC to ensure that our district policy team can dynamically update outdated bylaws, particularly around urban vegetation management and stormwater runoff boundaries? And my second question is, how are we ensuring that council staff are empowered to exercise critical thinking? I do take the point about AI, it's kind of cool, but the kid over the road is very bright, warned me about the questions. Critical thinking to identify these overlapping risks proactively, rather than relying on reactive, costly legal fixes after property damage has already occurred. So I don't expect answers tonight, because I would like some answers at some stage to the question when
Thank you.
And I don't want to interrupt the hui.
No, you're not interrupting the hui. That's what we're here for. Thank you
It's
for
got
these
my notes
questions.
on it. You can't
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Go, Kevin.
in
Thank
answer
you.
to your first question about overland flow paths and stormwater, yeah, but stormwater. Well, the two go hand in hand, and stormwater gullies.
I didn't ask about that.
What was your stormwater one?
What frameworks are currently in place at TDC to ensure that our district policy team can dynamically update outdated bylaws, particularly around urban vegetation and stormwater runoff boundaries? So I'm really asking about all these outdated policies. And climate change is not new, not to me. Like in the 70s, I was actually working in some environmental science somewhere. I wasn't like the big shot, but I've been active in it, and it's been published. And so I'm interested in it, and I've lived my entire life having basically been dependent on the weather. I was rural, I've lived, like lots of us. And I've been around the weather. So climate change has been happening for a long time. In New Zealand, it's been talked about by some people who weren't listened to for a really long time. So I'm more interested in the policy side of it, actually, to make sure that the policies are not only outdated, but they're so entrenched that there's no flexibility in them for to be changed. And I guess what I'm asking in the second question is, I don't know how they write policy at the council. So what I'm asking is, you have a lot of staff that are on the ground who are travelling all the time, or you have people like Dave here who are out in the environment. And are staff, as they travel around just to do their everyday job, because somebody was in Turangi yesterday, so they're up and down the road, they're working and stuff. Are they able to come back to the office, and if they work at the office, and say, okay, I noticed this seems to be a pattern, or this and this is happening. Okay, somebody talks to Dave because he's out in the environment all the time. I know right now you're busy, so this is extra busy, so this is it's a little bit left of field for right at this moment. I just want I suppose I want to know what is happening. I want some assurances that there's flexibility in there, and that people who work in the environment and have history in there, because just because you have grey hair doesn't mean you don't know anything or it's too outdated. It can be. My language is outdated. I've just learned through AI to use risk reduction instead of mitigate. It's really good. So that's okay, I don't mind. I hope to be learning when I die, so that's good. But it's not related to the hui, so I'm happy to let it go. Oh, that's all right. But it's to do with policy.
I'll have a crack at answering, and it is to do with this meeting tonight, because any subject you want to discuss, we're happy to do that. So the short answer to your first question is yes. In fact, right now, there's a suite of 6 district plans and policies under review and about to come back for rewrite to the council table. And among that is the residential chapter of the district plan. So that will include things like areas where we should not be building on or allowing building to occur. So if, for example, successive, and I'll pick on a district in particular, if successive councils in the Christchurch Canterbury area had resisted developers and resisted a whole lot of court proceedings, the eastern suburbs, which are now the red zone, would not have succumbed to what they did during the Christchurch earthquakes. So that is a lesson that's learned and something we are seeking to avoid. In terms of your second question, actually, Nahuia and I were in Turangi this morning and drove back and saw someone sitting next to you on the way back. And the expectation is, if staff do see something, absolutely they bring it back and deal with it. And if anyone reports things to council and the Antenno app or an email or a whole range of other communication methods are there, the expectation is that that will be dealt with.
Okay.
So the answer to both those is yes.
So can I just add there, with your policy updating, do those go out for public consultation, or is that just dealt with in-house?
No, full public consultation. In fact, that has been occurring. And again, this is one of the challenges of communication. So we'll put it out on the website, and someone say, oh, I don't go on the internet. So we'll put it in the newspaper, so I don't get the newspaper. So we'll send emails out, so I don't have email. So any which way you look at it, someone misses out. But I can tell you there are multiple channels that council uses to communicate as best as we are able, and all of those plans are fully consulted, and that will come back to us for review.
When you say plans, do you mean policy?
Well, the plans I'm talking about are the district plans, so policy is embedded in that, yes.
So I'm talking about policy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Much the same, yeah.
Okay. So I guess one of my questions would be for later, okay, not tonight really, is, well, there's one thing, are the council still encouraging anonymous reporting of issues? If this occurs, do staff now engage with the subject of the reporting, or do they just send out a threaten to prosecute letter? Because I know that happened a while back to somebody. So has that culture changed within council? Because I think that there are times when it is appropriate for people to report anonymously, but I have become very, very wary of somebody who can drive through, I don't know, what's the next town down, or your town here, somebody from, won't pick on Auckland, let's say they're coming from Nelson, and they're driving through and, oh, they see something they don't like. So they anonymously report. I think they should put their name onto it, so they should be referred to. But I do understand there are times when it is difficult and anonymity is fine. And the other thing that I am really wanting to know about are the policies around urban vegetation management and stormwater runoff boundaries. Eventually, what I would like to know is if those have been, because some of that stuff's really outdated, I believe. So has that been updated? And basically the response eventually that I'd like, given that you're up to your eyebrows and above at the moment with other stuff, is when, what dates, when did it happen, and actually how clear was it that it was out for public consultation? So that's it, and no complaints.
Yeah,
just
one of the, I think it was my very first Waters Committee meeting, we did actually have a presentation on the update of the climate process and how that was going to be then implemented throughout. But there, first we wasn't really ingrained in there on what the details are now, but we should be able to come back to you on the various policies that are being reviewed at the moment, because I know stormwater is on there, whether, I'm not sure what state it's at, but it is currently being reviewed, and there is quite a lot of work in that space. So that is definitely on the table, but definitely that climate change policy was a big piece of work, and I remember it having several impacts on different things across council and the way we operate. So it is being considered.
And to be fair, I've got better at looking myself, okay? Which I am capable of doing. So, and I'm trying to look every time the email comes out.
So what I'm hearing from you, Kate, if I can be as presumptuous to sort of, I always feel when people raise something that there's something that they'd like to see as an outcome. So what I'm hearing from you is that those policies around stormwater and vegetation are outdated,
Urban vegetation.
and that they need a review, and that you'd like some of the boots on the ground contributing to that conversation. So the teams that are out there, yeah.
But I also realise that you are exceptionally busy, so I don't expect it yesterday. It's fine.
No, and completely concur with that, but just actually, I want from these community hui's that we're actually going to do something and come back with something. So that would be the challenge to us, is to have taken a look at that. No, but I'm not promising.
How many challenges do you want right now?
But what I'm not promising is we're going to do it tomorrow. That this becomes an action point from tonight's meeting, that we will go and have a look at that, and we will come back to you personally, but also the next time we're in Waitahanui, we will give an update on that for everybody.
Because really it's a New Zealand-wide thing, but the damage to the infrastructure is just appalling every time we have an event. People going without electricity off for so long. And I understand about cost, I understand about lots of things, but this idea that with forestry, the pine trees, or these huge trees on the side of the road by major power lines and things like that, it's BS, remove the trees. Because actually real people have to go out and do that work, and we're all sitting in bed and screaming about the fact that we're cold and we've got no food. Somebody's father or mother is actually out up the power line, sorting it out. And I think we've grown up enough and we're far enough through it that actually as a country we need to start actually saying this is what's going to happen. Because it's not acceptable anymore just to have policies that are outdated because somebody likes a tree. And
that's
it's a good thing, but we have to actually pay for the infrastructure, and actually we don't have a right to kill other people. 40 minutes from here, there's a family without a mother because a tree fell down and killed her.
Yep.
Yeah, so that I won't talk anymore now.
Thank you,
I've
Kate.
more than had my say.
No, but
Thank you. Don't rush, because you are busy.
No,
Rather
but
you did the other stuff.
but appreciate that there are a number of things, and it's good to have those things brought up. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your consideration and well put questions.
Oh, cool.
Okay, the whole amalgamation thing, I've taken a bit of a different view of it, because although it's a very important issue to us, it's not the only one. And I think that self-analysis is maybe not the greatest, but my strengths aren't in trying to learn everything about the amalgamation and trying to tell you people what to do. So, or giving you my advice, because I'd have to do so much reading to get anywhere near where you are. So I've made the decision that you have my trust, and you go and do what you want to do. And I'll focus on the other things. Now, one of the things that concerns me is the wet wipes issue. Yes. Right? Now, I know the council have gone around and put some good advertising material and toilets and things like that. We're going to help because we've got another sign on the back of the ute that we're in. Wet wipes, block pipes, only 3Ps down the loop. And we're going to have that on the back of the ute. And more in town, a more, I suppose, a slightly more aggressive approach than maybe the council, forceful approach. Because I see as talking to the wastewater guys, they're in real trouble over this, and we cannot afford to have our beaches shut. So that's one thing I'm going after. The other one we've got at the moment is we have been told by Department of Conservation for the first time that I can remember that looking forward, there's a shortage of food in the lake for the trout. That's why they've lifted the limit from 3 to 6 a few years ago. Now they've taken it up to 8. Now the risk is, because we've seen it before at other times, is that we have tens and tens of thousands of fish going up those rivers to spawn, coming back to the lake to a shortage of feed. The moment the word gets out that the condition of the Taupo trout are not that great, we suddenly lose a whole lot of people to Okataina, Tarawera and Rotowiti. They're gone. And our business community can't afford that either. So somehow we've got to get out there and we've got to get a harvest out of that lake. And that's another change in behaviour. Now, we did it at the 2 Mile Bay Sailing Club thing. We got 70 fish donated. So took them home, 26 of them I assessed, not good enough to represent our fishery. 44 were. Took them to Ray the Butcher at Paitiki, paid for them to be smoked and sent them to the cancer units at Waikato, Rotorua and Taupo Hospital. But we got to get these fishermen out there taking a harvest or we're going to be in trouble on that one. Okay? So there's 2 big things there that are right. The other thing is our public conservation land in the last 3 years and NZTA land in this area has gone backwards in a screaming heap. You know, we looked at a project with Department of Conservation a couple of weeks ago. We had a site visit and they said, where are you going to get the materials from? And I said, well, what can you do? They said, we ain't got any money to provide anything. Nothing. So we got a lot of public conservation land here, and unless there's volunteers working in it, like the Hini Mai or like Shirley Potter on the Tauranga Taupo, it's going backwards in a screaming heap. Look at the potholes and everything in Awaroa Reserve north of here. I mean, we've carted trailer loads of metal out of Taupo, brought them down and tried to fill in the entranceways off the highway so people in camper vans can come off. We're paying for that out of that. My birthday present for me last year was $750 worth of chemical to spray weeds up and down the side of the highway, so it looks nice for our tourists. We were spraying weeds today when Kevin and John came around. So the government have cut back on DOC and on NZTA, and we're paying for it. I mean, even you going down to Turangi a few weeks ago, you couldn't even see the shrine at the Waitaka Stream Bridge because the broom was there. Well, it's all dead now. And we are a tourist town, and we need tourism. But we don't want people coming here once and going somewhere else. We want them coming back. We want repeat tourism. And we're, I think, in a situation where we are now in the age of the volunteer, because I don't personally believe that the TDC have got the money to look after the town the way they needed to. And we have to get into a new thing where it's time for the community to step up and give a hand. And little things like coming out along Lake Terrace, and before you get the airport roundabout on the left-hand side, there's a big sign there. Tell me something? We painted the poles a couple of weeks ago. As you go back up to the airport roundabout, you go to the left and you go around on the left-hand side, there's a patch of bush with some blackberry in it. Well, the blackberry's dying tomorrow. You look outside the ANZ Bank at the grass that's growing in the cobbles outside the ANZ Bank, that's going to die too tomorrow. And then you've got signs up and down the bypass, the cycle signs. They need a clean. You know, but the amount of work and you guys will know better than me, but I sense that the amount of work that needs to be done around this town versus the amount of money that's available doesn't add up without a massive rates, which means we somehow got to get more volunteers out there helping. But we've got some problems, particularly around the fishery, particularly around the wet wipes.
And 100% don't disagree with anything that you've just said. No. And I guess just on behalf of our community, just a big thank you to you for what you do and the things that you get out.
You know, I'm just in awe of what Taupo, tidy Taupo do. I mean, that is just phenomenal. And the sad thing is that they're out there doing it week after week. I mean, the rubbish that we are picking up off the car parks, you know, the deer carcasses and the pig carcasses and the rubbish that we're picking up out of our car parks up the rivers, so that somebody can come out from town with a fishing guide, pull into a car park, and they've got a clean car park. And as dinos, these 2 car parks down here at the main road bridge, we're tidying them up 2, 3, 4 times a week. Massive amount of effort going in.
Doesn't say much for people, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No, all of us.
you know, which rocked us all when the Japanese clean up the stadium in this Football World Cup. We go, how the hell do they do it? You know, what are they doing? So my view is that my time's best spent on the things that I'm good at, smashing gorse all over the place and trying to tidy up. You guys are involved in the amalgamation, go for it. And whatever you come up with.
So, just echo what Kylie said. I do see you out and about, as do a lot of other people, and thank you. I wonder sometimes it's best we probably don't know everything that you do and just go thank you afterwards. But you're right. This town, this district survives on volunteers. You only have to look at the major events that occur. There are bigger centres who are in awe of the people who come out and volunteer their time in this district. And it's a testament to the community spirit that we've got. And just as an aside, the Mayor and I are hosting the Tairi Taupo team on Friday morning for a morning tea to thank them. And they do an amazing job. And comment you just made a second ago, Kate, it's not a good reflection on some people. It's appalling how some people treat the whenua and just chuck rubbish all over the place.
Can I just say that some of those people are the nicest, most smartly dressed people in Taupo, and I see them.
One of the things that might give you an example is George is the guy that has the contract to clean up the sides of the roads. He's the guy in the little golf cart, you know, and then they have to have a safety vehicle behind him, and then after a few incidents around the country, then they have to have a second safety vehicle. So we're selling aluminium cans, and with the money using it to brighten the lives of kids with cancer and things like that. George picks up the cans off the side of the road and keeps it separate. He drops 8 to 10 to 12 big black bags of cans a week at my place, off the side of the main highways in our area. Week after week after week, he arrives at my place on a Saturday morning with 10 to 12 big black cans, just of cans. Phenomenal what goes on out there.
I just want to check in on one of your things that you brought up with the wet wipes, because I was down with the Greening Taupo with these guys doing some stuff with the kids, and their whole interaction with the kids was around what you can and can't flush down the toilet. It was great. The kids know it. It's everybody in between that needs to get the memo. So that's where it is kind of harder to get it out when our kids are actually learning this stuff as normal process at school now, when it comes to looking after the taiao, making sure they actually know what to do in those spaces, and it's their norm. It's the generations above that we kind of need to re-educate. So it's almost like telling your friends, because we also found out recently, you know, one of our councillors didn't even know you weren't supposed to flush a wet wipe down the toilet, so she's had a re-education as well. It's scary how many people think it's normal, because the advertising has always said they're flushable. They're not flushable, whether they say it or not. But it's interesting.
And that all comes back to one of the problems we've got in New Zealand of behaviour change. The police can't get behaviour change around speeding, drunken driving, talking on the mobile phone, and they've got all sorts of demerits and flashing red light specials and fines and everything. How are we supposed to get it around rubbish and everything? We have in freshwater biosecurity looked at this issue for 20 years. How do we get behaviour change? And if we could figure out how to do it, we could sell it to the governments of the Western world for squillions of millions of bucks. If we can just figure out how to get people to change their behaviour. It's phenomenal. You know? It's just, you know? And the rubbish pickups. I mean, people up the Hinny Mire and on the Tongariro and places, people say to me sometimes, are the spawning runs started? I go, nah. They said, have you been fishing? I said, no, just look at the car park. You'll tell when the Diane Rona, you'll tell when the spawning runs are starting on Taupo tributaries, just by looking at what's in the car park. And you look in the bushes and the bottles and the beer and all the rest. Just incredible what goes on. How do we get this behaviour change?
I think it's, ko dai tako ingoa. I'm from Waitahanui. And it's something that occurred to me is that we've got to push the environmental and the care of the country at the kids. Because, you know, we took... it's a little story. Rule does a trap line out at Te Papamārearea. There's predator traps out there that Rule clears every couple of weeks. And I needed some tent poles to make a pterodactyl. And I thought the logical place to find these tent poles was going to be at Te Papamārearea because I know that the campers out there chuck their stuff. So I went out there one Sunday afternoon and Rule cleared the rat traps and possum traps, and I searched around in the place for my tent poles with my grandson, and we didn't find the tent poles, but we pulled out 28 kilograms of rubbish, and that was the stuff that we could pick up, you know. And he was appalled. Jonah was completely appalled at what he found in the bushes. And then 2 weeks ago, we had a kids screening Taupo Arbor Day planting up by the golf course. And Rule and I had spent the previous 2 days setting all these plants out. 4,000 plants we'd put out and around the ground for these kids. And at this site, the organisers of Project Tongariro had, you know, they had all the people there from all the different environmental places. And you'd think that while we were there, that there would be a very big environmental thought of looking after the whenua and all that. But Carol was there with her tidy Taupo people, and they picked up litter that was dropped, and it wasn't dropped by the kids. It was the ones in between. So I think it's really important. And coming back to the wet wipes, we share a septic tank on our property with our neighbour, and the thing started to backfill a bit, so I thought I'd better go and check the drain, and sure as eggs I pulled out wet wipes. And what I found really quite disturbing was that the fix for the wet wipe problem was that the council guys came in and cleared the blockage, but then they took the filter off the entrance to the septic tank that was stopping these things from going into the septic tank to start with. So it beats me, you know, and I'm really, you know, I think the wet wipes is a real problem. I remember when our kids were little, you know, they came out, they were the things you put in the nappies. We very quickly learnt that they were not, they were liners, yeah, nappy liners. You know, so yeah, but that's, I think, let's get the messages through to the kids, because the kids will tell the adults. Well, that's what we're finding with a lot of this, particularly the environmental stuff, you know. The kids know all the birds, they know what does this and what does that, and all the critters, and it's great. I love working with kids.
I've got another thing as well. What I noticed in Taupo is that we spend a lot of money on roads, parking places, and allowing people to, you know, use the town with their cars. And I come from a country and from an age where we walk to school, or riding the bike to school. This is in Holland also. And I can't believe that we can't take our kids here, or our grandchildren can't take the bike to school because it's too dangerous with cars going. And then we have empty buses going to town every day where, you know, there's nobody on it. So all these people that, you know, want to go shopping have to, you know, don't want to take the bus. They want to take their own car. The car parks have to get bigger and bigger. And maybe we should just charge people for parking their car on the car parks. By the,
AI had to fix
well,
how to pay the parking fee.
yeah, but you know, we've lived in Auckland, and there's a lot of money that you have to pay for car parks there. But here it's all free, and they drive these empty buses through town. Unbelievable.
It's crazy, eh?
My commiserations for your football team, sorry. I had to say that. It's pretty, the biggest treasure. Oh, no, but interestingly, just 2 or 3 years ago, we did actually have a consultant come in and float the idea of paid parking in town. It's definitely a possibility, sort of pay and display parking, like Rotorua.
Yeah, but their things never work.
Oh.
Those stand-up things, you know, you're supposed to put your card in and then go,
My sense is that it would go down like a lead balloon with the people here. I mean, I'm from Auckland. Yes, you don't. You learn to bike around or bus or whatever, but here it's like it's too easy. It's a pretty serious fix. It's too easy to get in your car and go anywhere. And the people here would resist quite strongly, I think, if we started to try to put paid parking in the town centre. It would have to be done in a very diplomatic way, I'd say that.
Well, I think people could apply for free parking by the supermarket if they have good reasons for it. And if, you know, they can't cope with the bus time or with the, you know, for only for locals or only for, yeah. There could be rules and regulations that.
It all just, it all comes down to the culture, and within the community, and the value that we see in things like our taiao, the lands, our wai, the water, and how we think of it and how we treat it. We have a landfill on a mountain that's going to reach capacity very soon, and what's our plan B going to be? So we have to kick into gear like yesterday, like 10 years ago, and start amplifying that that thought, that culture shift within the community. At the end of the day, it all starts in our homes. And I think our children who are coming up through school, they're being educated strongly in regards to whenua management, the protection of our taiao, how we need to sustain the place that we come from so that it's there for generations and generations and not the opposite. So definitely some strong themes coming out about that, and thank you all for raising that. Dave, you got something else?
Yeah, one other thing.
Yep.
Just a reminder to people that when Mayor Trawavis sat down with me a few years ago, my role was to be given a Taupō District Council vehicle, fuelled by Harcourts, and my role was to do the things that needed to be done that affected our citizens that were not the core business of the council. So we have elderly ladies in town who are widows, who want to grow some roses or have a mandarin tree that can't because the possums are coming out of the gullies and smashing it. We won't put up with that. We're going after them. We saw a lady coming out of Countdown Wharewoka last year, a lady with vision impaired with a helper, and she's got 2 packs of kindling wood in a shopping trolley. I said, what the hell are you doing with that in there? Oh, well, this is where I buy my kindling. Well, we fixed that. We had a couple of kids in a few days with bags of pine cones for her. So that has always been my role. Things like Rangatyke Primary rang up one day, and they had, the children had seen an animal coming out of the chook house with an egg in its mouth. Now, it had to be a stoat or a ferret, okay? They rang a commercial company. They said, oh, it's not a big enough job. They rang Waikato Regional Council or someone. They rang DOC. Nobody wants to help. That's what we're there for. And if you get things like that, because we were there, once the lady rang me, the principal, we were there within an hour on site. Not because we needed to get the stoat, but because we didn't want the stoat going back and smashing killing all the chooks at night, and then these poor little kids going out one day and being emotionally distraught because their chooks have been thing. Other things like that, when Rod and Tackle were down the bottom of Tongariro Street, Matt was running the shop, he looked out one day and he saw a big rat in the garden. We put a trap in that night, we had him by the next morning. We don't want people walking down the main street of Tongariro going, there's a rat there. So all those sort of things are my job to do while I've got the council district vehicle. And you know, if someone rings the council and says, oh, I've got a possum that's doing thing, I would like the council staff to be able to go, so well, look, it's not really our deal, but I understand the mayor and the deputy mayor have got some deal going with Didimo ringing that we can look after our citizens and those ones that need it. Sorry? Eh? Yeah, well, but you know what I'm saying. I like the people on the front line to know that, hey, if there's a problem like that, we're there. That's what our job is. You know, and to look after, and also to stand strong for Taupo. One of the first things we did with Mayor Travis was, with the changes in the bylaws for freedom camping along the waterfront, we weren't allowed to stay in the car parks, and with the situation at 5 Mile Bay, Taupo got the reputation very quickly that it was unfriendly to motorhomes. Well, we solved that. We went after it night after night after night. And one lady would stand there in the car park and go, oh, but Taupo doesn't want motorhomes. I said, well, what the hell do you think I'm doing? I'm standing there with a bag of lollies, welcome you to town. Where do you get that? Oh, yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? She said. So we fixed that. It's like the judge coming out the other day saying that Tūwharetoa was dangerous, street was dangerous after dark. I mean, we went after that one too. And things like that affect our reputation, I think we need to stand very strong and be prepared to go outside of what council is core things. And if there's something that needs to be done, then while I've got the ute, that's my job. As a volunteer, that's my job. That's the deal. Fair? So just a reminder of anybody that, you know, I mean, we had a lady along the waterfront that wanted to have her friends over to have G&Ts after golf, and she couldn't because the possums were eating the lemons. And you want to hear how stroppy these ladies, I'll get them, I'll get that little thing. I mean, we went out, we bought 7 big cage traps and a high-powered slug gun to deal with these things. Now, that's how many there are. And there's traps out night after night after night all around Taupo after these things. So those are the jobs that we are a bit unique. I don't know another council that's got an arrangement like that, but that's what we're doing. And just a reminder to all of us that if somebody's got a problem, that's what we're there for.
Thanks, Dave. And as I said before, some things you do, we're probably best not to know about all the details. Back to you, Mahini.
Yeah, thanks. Tauto ko tira. Thanks, Dave. I think before we start to wrap up, does anybody have any other questions about anything happening in council? Do you want an update on anything in particular? Want to know about your rates? Duncan will tell you about those. No. I feel like we've had a really robust kōrero tonight though. This is the reason why we've introduced these Councillor Connect forums. They're informal, they allow a platform for members of our community to come in and kōrero and tuku, because it's not often you get to sit in a room with councillors, the people who make decisions about your rohe, your home. And I think they're really important to continue. I think over the next week or so in July, we've got another one coming up tomorrow out at Kinloch, another Councillor Connect Forum happening out at Kinloch. Councillor Rachel Cameron is leading that one, and she'll have a couple of councillors out there with her again. And then next week, Tuesday, Monday, we're out at Tōkanu Marae for Te Papamārearea for our Māori ward. But yeah, just that's kind of how we intend for these Connect forums to happen. And depending on who your lead governor is or who your lead is for the Connect forum, they might happen differently. But you know, it's really about opening up a platform for our communities to come in, tuku kōrero, just to share thoughts, concerns, awanga, and have an open space to talk with your councillors. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. If there are no further questions, kōrero, any of our elected members have anything else to say?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming out.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Especially you're busy.
Thank you very much.
I'll
Thanks,
finish
Di.
on one little story.
Yep, okay.
Young ones. 5 delightful young Maori boys down at the bridge pool down here. They're all aged about 10 or 12 in the summertime. They come up to me one night and they say, "Oh, look, we've picked up this nylon and you shouldn't leave this
Can we
nylon
have a
round."
lolly?
Eh?
And can we have a lolly and an ice block and a
you know
fizzy
where
drink?
you're going. Yeah. Can we? And we're going to put it in the bin because this is not that you shouldn't leave this stuff on the awa, should you? I said, no, shouldn't. So we're going to put it in the bin. How got any lollies? And I've got a big bag of lollies in the car, sponsored by Taupo Office Products. Well, these kids were diving in the river. They were hauling stuff off. They ran out of it. One of them comes up to me one day and gives me some. And then about an hour later, he's back with some more. I said, hey. I said, you got a stash of this somewhere. Every time you want a lolly, you're going to get some, aren't you? And his head went down. He went, He said, can I still have a lolly? I said, listen, sport, I asked you a direct question. Have you got a stash? And you told me the truth. You can have a lolly every day of the week for telling me the truth. But that's what they were doing. There were 5 of them. Were you following it? Yeah. They were in the river. They were hauling, because fishermen were coming out. Where are we going to fish? All these little Maori boys in the river, delightfully, you know. I mean, I wouldn't trust them as far as mischief goes. As far as I kick them, I'd trust them with trouble. But as far as mischief, they were delightful. And they just cleaned, they kept that car park so clean, because the silly old Pākehā's got a bag of lollies in his car. But Di is right about the young ones, you know. And we had them out again today with some of the ones from alternative education, and they're just brilliant. You get them out there, they're just wonderful people. We went all the way down the bypass from the Broadlands one day, coming down the bypass to the airport roundabout, paying them a lolly for every wilding pine seedling they saw, and another one for pulling them out. By Jesus, they had pocketfuls by the time we got to the airport roundabout. Pulling the wilding pines out, and these are some of the mischief things that Kevin's talking about. You know, you get up to, but the young ones are far and away, they're there. And they're wonderful in their attitudes of kaitiaki and how they look after the place. Yeah.
Oh, they're clever,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They got me sussed, I tell you. Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. That was a nice little story to finish us off with. Nani Phyllis, he kōrero anō? He kōrero anō tau? Tāpiri atu I tērā? Kei te pai.
E pai awa hoki kara mai ki konei ki te whakarongo mai ki a koutou e kōrero ana. Ai, e tino pai rawa hoki ngā kōrero e pāna ki a tātou katoa, nera. Ai. Engari, whakawhakaro, I maumahara hoki te kumahara manawa kiti mai koutou. E mahi ana ngā mahi mō tātou. Ai. Ngā mihi ki a koutou katoa.
Tēnā koe. Tēnā koe, Nan. Tāna, kōrero anō, ka Dai. All right. Rose. Ngā huia.
Kei te pai. We'll sing a song.
Kylie, Duncan, Kevin, Rose. All right, that's us whānau. I'll wrap us up with a karakia. Unuhia te rito o tēnei hui, kia wātea I runga, kia wātea I raro, aro ki te tika, aro ki te pai, hui e, tae ki e. Thank you whānau. Thanks everyone for coming.